These trees live for thousands of years. They're called bristlecone pines, and they're found only in a few small areas of the western USA. These were just what Michael Mann was looking for, because inside they contain a record of past temperatures. Like any tree, these pines lay down rings, one for each year of their life. These rings are the key to past climate. This is a slice from one of the trees. Take a look. You can barely see the tree rings. They're in there all right. They're just really tightly packed. And the reason that each ring is so fine is because the tree grows a tiny amount every year. That is 100 years. And it's these rings that tell us about past temperatures because they tell us how much the tree grew in that year. In a warm year, the snows will melt earlier and the trees will grow more and leave a fatter ring. In a cold year, they'll hardly grow at all. It's called a climate proxy. You can't read temperature directly like reading it from a thermometer, but you can use the evidence to estimate what the temperature was. But of course, this only tells you about the conditions in this one place. So Michael Mann and his team needed to find other temperature proxies from all around the world. Places that could tell them what the temperature really was as far back as the medieval warm period. They searched the world, getting data from other proxies, like corals from the Red Sea and ancient layers of snow from the mountains of Peru. And then they had to add in the recent thermometer records. Combining the different numbers to reconstruct global temperatures is a fiendishly difficult task. It needs the kind of statistical analysis that makes my head hurt. Michael Mann put all the numbers together and used it to create a very special graph. And here it is. It's basically a graph of temperature over the last 1,000 years. And the first thing that hits you is there's virtually no sign of the medieval warm period. I mean, the skeptics would have a big bump in temperature just here when the world got warmer. Instead, it looks like for at least 900 years, give or take a few ups and downs, it's incredibly flat. But it's not until you get to the 20th century and bang. Temperatures shoot up in a way it's unlike anything we've seen for at least a millennia. Now, this graph tells a very different story from the skeptics. They say the present temperatures are nothing special. This graph says the opposite. The simplicity of this graph makes it a really powerful image, and it's even been given its own name, the hockey stick. It became one of the most famous and controversial graphs in science. It was so dramatic that it became an icon, an instantly recognisable symbol of man-made climate change. Not surprisingly, skeptics hated it. They said the hockey stick was a fiction, because there was virtually no trace of the medieval warm period. They accused Mann of using faulty data and dodgy statistics to rewrite history. The hockey stick still provokes strong reactions today. What's your reaction when you see that? It's probably the most famous graph in the world, isn't it?
And I think what a shame that a scientific scandal like this would be perpetuated on the American public and on the United Nations.
A scandal.
It's a scandal. It's absolutely outrageous.
This has even been discredited by the National Academy of Sciences. They said it was unsupportable.
When you see this, what goes through your mind now?
Well, the first thing is great disbelief.
Scientists are always bitching with each other. I've been at a conference when someone said, you know nothing about your subject, but they kind of enmity that's been directed at Michael Mann is something else. Some even accused them of the ultimate scientific crime: fraud.
If it's fraud, they should be in jail. If it was incompetence, they should be fired.
I never expected the sort of attacks that we were subject to when I began this work.
This was clearly, and I'm going to say it bluntly, deliberately bent.
If you can't win your argument on the basis of science, you try to win based on defamation, of slander, of rhetoric that sounds convincing but has no basis in fact.
I would say it's as close to scientific fraud as you can get.
Michael Mann was attacked in print and even more viciously on the web. Entire websites were set up to pick holes in the hockey stick. But whilst the skeptics were busy attacking Mann, other researchers were doing their own science, hunting for more proxies and using different methods to work out past temperatures. Soon, Michael Mann's graph was joined by many others, all reconstructing the past 1,000 years of temperature. The question was, would they back up Michael Mann, or would they prove him wrong? You know, it might look confusing, but this graph has a really clear message. The red line is Michael Mann's original hockey stick graph. It's very flat, with hardly any medieval warm period. The other lines are the reconstructions that have been done since. Now, there's a big spread. In other words, scientists disagree about a lot of the temperatures in here. That's not really surprising, because working out the temperatures for the past few hundred years is a really difficult task. It largely depends on what indications you use. But the crucial part is over here. This is 1000 AD. Now, some of the reconstructions show temperatures a little warmer than Mann's curve, and some of them also show going into much colder conditions at the end of the medieval warm period. What that probably means is that Michael Mann underestimated some of the variation in the past 1,000 years. In other words, the hockey stick is a little bit too straight, but it depends on the reconstruction you use. What these lines all agree on, though, is one thing. There's no evidence of any period in the past 1,000 years that's as warm as the second half of the 20th century. In other words, the end of the 20th century really is unprecedented. Once again, the sceptical attacks have made the science stronger. We now have a whole hockey team's worth of graphs. They make a very convincing case that the global warming detected by the thermometers and satellites really is unusual. But the skeptics said that still doesn't prove that humans are to blame. They had one more line of scientific attack. They said global warming has nothing to do with carbon dioxide, so leave those smokestacks and gas guzzlers alone. It was all the fault of the sun. The skeptics argued that since the Earth's climate is so dependent on the sun, it would only take small changes in the sun's behaviour to have a big effect on the climate.